We have with us today Victor and Daniel from Schmidt, Lassen. Victor is a digital practice lead. He leads the development of internal cloud APIs, applications, and services that connect SHL Creative Design Studio with the latest technology out there. And Daniel is a software developer who works remotely from Paris. He's also a trained architect. And today he is engaged on several development projects, both front-end and back-end. And so today, both will demo how to build a full stack web app using Speckle. So let's welcome them on stage.
Yes, thank you, Senda, for the invitation. Super excited to be here. Yeah, so I guess we have a lot of time, but it's a short time for a nap. So I would say, yeah, thank you very much. I'm here representing SHL and also Perkins and Will. We are also part of this group. But really, there is like a team behind us. We are working from Copenhagen. We are a bit of a mix. I guess that's very common in technology within the AEC, but we like to think that we have a special angle, and I would say it's a user experience angle. We try as much as we can to be good listeners and never only users of our technologies. We believe that architects have the knowledge and the power to do their work. So we don't think that computational designers should be doing a lot of them. So, but we do have some computational designers on the team, also some people on the BIM team in our UX. Today it's about developing an app, and I will talk about that later. But Perkins and Will and SHL is, we call it like it's the largest, smallest firm. So in a way, there is like 2,000 plus on our staff as architects and designers. And then there's like 26 studios across the world. So working in technology within this firm is actually like a good challenge because it makes us think about scalability, makes us think about how can we put technology without being there and be outside of the scope. So I must say that it's been like a really good challenge to face. But today we're stuck with the devs. That's me and Daniel. Senda already introduced us, so I'll go straight to the point. We're gonna be building this app today. We call the Assets app, and it's just like a furniture, if you will, catalog, looking into Speckle's information, but also its properties and so on. This is a little breakdown of the session today. I won't go through this because I think it's more exciting to do stuff. But the architecture on the right side maybe is a little bit more interesting. So we're going to be leveraging the connectors, of course, to extract this data from a place, send into the server, and then using webhooks to reach an API that we developed. And then Daniel is going to be using the viewer on the front end and the preview service to generate some image on the front end. There's a lot that's going to be involved on this, but rest assured that there is a fully functional version of this app at this GitHub repo. We're going to be doing live coding, and some of you might be have knowledge of live coding. Some things might go wrong, some things might not. So that's the experience. We're happy to be here on the spot. And then with that, I will lead to Daniel to start the session.
Yes, hello everyone. Okay, so we're gonna use this framework called Next, which is built on top of Vue.js and allows you to build full stack applications. So you have front end and back end in one app, which is pretty convenient, especially for smaller teams. So yeah, I will get into it right away. And so we're gonna start by initializing the app. It's nuxilated in it, and then you are passing a name. So we're just gonna call it app to keep it simple. It has to install several packages, so it will take a bit of time. We will pick the NPM version for installing. And you can see that we have already a new folder in here. We have a root of our application. We have a config of all the packages. We have a Next application config as well. And here, actually, we can start by adding some modules that we want to install. We will install 2 modules. I just gonna maybe copy it quickly. So we will install Tailwind CSS just to, it's what we use for styling instead of vanilla CSS, just to be a bit quicker. Yes, and then the second package is Next Icon, which is basically a package with a bunch of icons that we're gonna use in the app as well. All right, so going back to the console, I don't want to initialize the repo. We are navigating inside the app folder, and now actually we can install those two packages, those two modules. So let me use npm to do that. So first we're gonna install Tailwind, and then the second one will be the icons package. Okay, we have Tailwind. Now the icons package. I'm gonna save all those things on the README on the repo, so you will be able to copy paste as well later on. And we're probably gonna go very quickly, so don't worry if you can't follow at the moment. Hopefully the recordings will be available so you can watch it later. Okay, so we just started the app by running npm run dev, and let me refresh it. Perfect. So we can see already this next welcome component that comes with a new application and so now we can actually check if the Tailwind was installed properly. So we're gonna say hello SpeckleCon. Yes, the font looks great. And just to double check, I'm gonna pass this class underline that will underline our text. Perfect. So as you see, we have all the styling packages installed correctly. And so now the next step will be actually to initialize some routing. So we're gonna create a new folder that is called pages. And inside pages, we'll create an index.view component. So actually, Next is smart enough to pick up that this pages folder, and it's gonna generate all the routes for us. And index.view, it will be a root root. So now actually, if we're gonna go back to the app, we also have to initialize this routing system here. So we're gonna add a new component that comes from Next. It's called Next Page, and that hopefully will show us our new component. Yes, so as you can see, we have this root component going on here, and then we have to bring some other components that we'll inject here. So to do so, we create a new folder called components this time, and it's again the same story. So Next is smart enough to pick up all the components that will sit inside this folder. So we're gonna start with asset pagination .view. So that will be a first component that will handle the pagination logic for our assets. I will copy the whole component because it's a bit of typing, and yeah, we just have to be quite quick here. But essentially, it's holding all this pagination logic here. Okay, so now we need two more components. Two other components. One is asset.grid. This one will hold the grid of all the cards of all the assets that we'll want to display. Also, I'm gonna paste the whole thing. Okay, great. And then we have one more component, which is asset card.view. And this one will be displaying a preview of each element. And if the preview is not available, it will display a Speckle logo. So going back to our index.view, we can start initializing those components. So first of all, maybe we actually can add the title of the whole page. So it will be name of the app. And let's add some styling in here. So let's make it absolute. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Thicker as well, medium. And let's make this text blue. Here we go. Let's bring it to the front to make sure that it's gonna display in the front, and also let's make it non-selectable so we don't select it by an accident. All right, and now we can start to bringing our components in here. So the first one will be this asset pagination component, in which we will inject the other components. So inside this pagination component, we'll put the grid component. And grid will iterate through all the assets that we can already see it because, as I mentioned before, Next gonna automatically import all the components that are in this components folder, so you don't have to care about all the imports and so on. It's pretty cool. Right, so inside this grid, we want to put also an asset card, but maybe actually let's start with bringing some assets here. So we have to pass some props inside this component with our assets. We don't have them at the moment, so we need some mock values for that. And then so I'm just gonna paste this array of some mock data in here. And afterwards, we'll get some data from backend from Victor, so we'll be able to display the real data in here. Okay, this is great. And so let me I need to refresh the app because it's not picking up the components. So let's give it 2 seconds. We can actually refresh it here as well. Great, so now we have, my colors are working, so that's perfect. Okay, so we have a grid, and inside the grid, we want to display the cards. Yes, that's it. So now you can see the Speckle logo that is repeated 9 times. So basically, it's all of those assets that we are displaying inside the grid. So the last thing I want to do here is actually to add some dynamic styling on top of it. So we're gonna start with maybe a hover effect. Maybe let's scale it to 90. And then on hover, we want to scale it to 95. So we have this nice effect of scaling. Then we want to round it, which is not visible because the color is the same at the moment. So actually we need to add the color as well. And to add the color would be nice to have an index on the grid for each single asset. So what we're gonna do, we'll use this V slot. So each asset that is passed inside the grid will be later on AV labeled through this V slot. It's basically, so if we go to the grid component, you can see that there is a for loop. And this for loop is allowing us to use every single asset outside of this component. So this is what we are doing. So you can access a single asset and you can access its index as well. So now we are checking if index is even or not. So it's just some modulo going on here. And so if it's even, we're gonna go with background blue of 900. And if it's not, let's go 950. So now we can see that we have different colors on our cards depending on the index. Yes, so this is it. And now we need to add one more page, because after clicking on a particular asset, we want to see more details about this asset and navigate to this asset page. So to do so, we're gonna use another next next component, which is next link. And this is basically allowing us to do some routing inside this component. So after clicking on what's inside this next link, I want to navigate to other page, and the other page will be an asset page, and then it will be ID of a particular asset. So we are again using this asset that comes from a grid, and then we are using its ID. There is yes, now. Okay, this is great, and it's all good, but if we're gonna navigate there, we don't have a page like that, so it's not gonna work. So we have to create a new page. So again, inside this pages folder, we create a new folder this time. So it will be called assets. So the same as this, what we have after slash here. And then we want to create a dynamic root. So that's why we're gonna use square brackets. And we're gonna pass, and we're gonna make a view component out of it. Oh, actually, sorry, my bad. I created folder inside the folder, but let me create a file that is called like that. And we need to delete this one. Once again, ID that view. Perfect. Great. So now I'm just gonna paste the whole thing in here, and I will explain you later what's going on. Or actually, maybe if we what's going on? I think we are missing something here. Let me double check. So assets, maybe it just needs a reload. Okay, yes, okay, great. So now when we click on a particular asset in our gallery, we are navigating to this page. And this page has a couple of elements. So first of all, we have this next link that we used previously for navigating to this page. And this one is actually going back to the gallery. So it's just this button in here. And when you click on it, it will bring you back to the gallery. Then we have this viewer component, which is basically this light blue rectangle right here. And later on, we will use this to display the viewer, the Speckle Viewer, to asset in the Speckle Viewer. And then we have a loop that is basically looping through all the object keys that our asset have, that you can see in here. Okay, yes, I think this is all. And we have everything mocked, and now I'm passing it to Victor so he can bring us some real data to the front end.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, so here's my screen. I got all of the implementation from Daniel. It's on this 0 setup, so I'm just going to create a new branch that's called live backend. I'm going to push this, and then the first thing we got to do is like, I'm going to explain to you really quick what technologies we're going to be using today for the backend. So we're going to be using Supabase. As they say here, built in a weekend, scaled to millions. I guess like we have 30 minutes, so let's see where this is going to go. I'm also going to be using ngrok. This is just because we're developing locally right now, and then I need to open a port in my PC so that Speckle can communicate with me since I'm not a server. And then the other thing we're going to be using is Speckle's GraphQL, and then of course Speckle's client. So that's great. I guess I will just go to my terminal here. I'm gonna fire up ngrok first. This is just the place where I downloaded and the port that I need. And then I have the app already. I should probably just do npm run dev on it. There might be something missing, but let's see. Yeah, so I have Daniel's app here. The first thing I want to do is like actually break the app. So Daniel has mock data here. And then to start things off, we're going to say that this is going to come from a thing that Nuke says called use fetch. That's used to fetch things on Nuxt, and then let's call it API, and let's call it assets for now. And then this is going to return us some data, and then Daniel called them assets, so I'm going to call it the same. And this should already break the app because there is no API at this moment. So we can go back here and yep, nothing working. So let's fix that. Before fixing anything, we need to install a few packages as well. So I'm going to clean my terminal, and then I'm going to install Supabase first. So let's go with that. In the meantime, I want to show you some things that I prepared beforehand. So on Supabase, if I go to my dashboard into assets, I've set up a table. So that's just a database. It looks very much like Speckle. Oh, not like Speckle, but Excel. And it has like a few columns. That's the same columns that Daniel will be using for displaying. So it has like a name here. I left like a flat screen. This is like a TV, and it's a furniture. It has like a project ID, which is a Speckle's stream. And it was created at this point. There's a version ID, a Speckle ID, and then a model ID, and then cost. But I think we're going to skip that for now. Yeah, so if I come back to my terminal, things got running. I need also to do some setup here. So I'm going to be adding Nuxt Supabase module as well. I'm going to say that Supabase should not redirect me. False. That's because Supabase by default implements off, and today we're going to be skipping off. I'm going to be running this back over. So that's one thing. The other thing that we need to have in mind is like I've set up some environment variables here. This you get from Supabase. That's an API key and an URL. And that's it. The next thing I need to do is like we need to use some helpers here to move fast. So I'm going to be generating some TypeScript from my database, and then for that I'm going to be using Supabase as CLI. So in here I can do npx Supabase, and it says generate types, and it says TypeScript. This is my project ID. You can get that from Supabase. And then I'm just saying like, give me the schema that's public and generate under this folder. I need to make sure probably that I have this folder, otherwise I think it's gonna complain. And then if I press enter, this should, yeah, go into Supabase and generate me some types. As a developer, it's really nice to have types if you're developing on the web, otherwise things can get dangerous. Yeah. So let's wait for this command to finish. In the meantime, I have my ngrok thing going on. Yeah, I guess we need to wait for this. Oh, I forgot to press enter, sorry. Yep, so I have like a database types here that I can use. Oh, and of course I need to install Supabase as well. Okay, hang on with me. We got problem Houston, npm install. And then let's try it one more time. Yep, it looks great now. So I'm just gonna go back. So I've generated my schema and I open my ngrok port here. The next thing I want to add is like we're gonna be communicating with Speckle's GraphQL API. So it's very helpful for you to be using a Nuxt GraphQL client as well. So let's install that. And then let's make sure that we add it to our modules as well in here. I'm gonna be setting up some, I'm gonna be enabling some source maps. That's very boring. And then I need to provide this information for the GraphQL client to work. So I'm basically specifying GraphQL and saying that this is my server. And that's just Speckle XYZ, blah, blah, blah. So I think we're good. One last step is we're not gonna be using this TS config that Nooks provide us. Yeah, I guess next time we will go to Speckle. So I'm just going to be using Speckle's GraphQL, and it's on this URL, Speckle XYZ, and we're trying to build a query here that will give us get Revit types. That's what we're going to be focusing today. So I'm going to be looking at streams, and then inside the stream, I'm going to be looking for a specific object. I'm going to get all of the children's, and then I'm going to get these objects, maybe some from these objects. I also need their ID. I need some speckle type, and I need some data from it. The nice thing is like this endpoint that's called children allows us to be very fancy on our query. So we can pass a query here. That could be an object that says, and then we need to see, well, this kind of query is going to be helping us filter things. So I could say that field would be speckle type, and then we need to say like, okay, but what from this are you looking for? And then I'm going to be looking for a very long name. That's the namespace and class name for Revit types. And then I'm just saying like, hey, I need you to check this speckle type, and oops, back to it. I need you to look into the speckle type field, and the value that I want is this one, and I want this to be an operator. So I want it to be equal. So that's what I'm doing here. It's a very long thing and scary, but that's okay. So what we're going to be doing is, because our Nooks client is installed, we can actually come here and then go to the create this folder called queries, and then we can name it like get Revit types.gql, and we can paste things here. And Nooks is going to be smart enough to generate us the types for the response of this GraphQL call. So yeah, let's start implementing our first API endpoint. So the first one is going to be called webhooks.post, because I need it to be, because webhooks sends us a post request, and that's press TS. And then, yeah, basically with Nooks, we need to define some event handlers here. And those are of type async. They receive an event, thank you, Copilot. Maybe I should start using Copilot more. And then we're going to be receiving requests from this. So the first thing that we need to extract from the webhook is a payload. We are going to be putting some check here just to check if it's a commit create or not. And then we can start taking this information out of this commit by using maybe something like this. So I'm getting the commit object from the payload event data. This is all documented on Speckle's documentation, so you're welcome to come there. Unfortunately, we are still not fully typed until this moment, but right now we can maybe get some magic going on by using this function here that Nooks is going to generate for us. So I didn't define this, but I think if I go into here and run my app, Nooks, the GraphQL client, should be able to generate this function for me, hopefully. Yeah, you see, it receives a stream ID, object ID, and that's the same things that I've defined it here. So it's a really helpful thing if you're developing on top of GraphQL. Now, the next thing we need to do is translate the data that comes through Speckle to our own schema. So I won't do that live, but I'm just going to paste. So here I'm basically doing a map operation. So I'm taking like all of these objects that came from the children's objects, and I'm mapping them to our own schema. The schema is coming from the database, so we probably need to import this. from our generated types. We're generating a lot of stuff here today. And then the next thing is like we need to call our database and say like, oops, hang on, copied too much. We need to call our database. So there is also like this Supabase client that we can use. And then we can basically say like const result will be await db dot from, and then it kind of knows our tables already. So that's the asset tables, and then insert assets. That's it. If everything goes fine, we should just like console log a result, and maybe return a message to our front end. Boom. So that's one endpoint. I spent some time on this one. Maybe the next ones will be more quick. So what I need to do right now is like come back here. This is probably not working very well. So I'm actually gonna enable the mock back just to make sure that we don't have any errors. And I will go into my terminal. I will copy this. And what I need to do is like go to Speckle, my stream. I've prepared this this project called Revit Samples, and then I need to go into Manage, Webhooks. We're using this for the first time. And then I just basically need to update my webhook that I've created previously. And then you notice that this thing, it's the same concept that Daniel was telling us about the folders. I have a folder under my server called API, and then inside is webhooks. So I can just put it this. I can say that I want the events commit create and commit update. And then if I press save, I should be able to go to Revit. Let me just make sure that everything is running. Revit, and then I could just maybe pick the Revit samples, and then the basic branch. I don't want everything. I want to be a bit faster here. So furniture and furniture systems, and then I send some stuff. I will go back to my app. There was actually an error going on. Page not found, webhooks. Okay, I might have a typo going on. Yeah, so my webhooks file was on the server, and I needed to be under my API. So I'm just going to move it there. Get back. Things are running. Let's try Speckle again. Some hiccups, but that's fine. Yeah, and then the thing, now I get a message that's saying like a conflict. It says that I already have an asset like that, and that's because I committed the mistake of not deleting my TV. I removed I left it here just for demo purposes, so I'm just gonna leave it back, try it again. And then, yeah, now we have like a created thing. And if we go back to our database, where's our database here, I have like a bunch of assets. I have TVs, sofas, a bunch of stuff. So now it's about serving this to Daniel on the front end. So let's do that by creating another endpoint on our API, and that's going to be called assets.ts. And let's go. So this one, I'm going to be moving a bit more faster so that we have time. I'm using the client again, and then I'm importing the database schema again and defining another event handler. So from this one, we actually like don't want to read the body. We want to get the query out of it. So then you will be passing like this query pages from us. And again, now it's just a database call. So from my database assets, I want all the properties and it counts as act. And I want to be doing some pagination here. So I'm saying like, this is just mathematics, right? I want to paginate this query. And then I'm going to be returning. So if we come back to index, maybe this is going to work. Well, actually, I'm just going to comment that out. And then in here, use fetch assets. Let's have a look at the app. It should be under here. Yeah, so if I click on this, I don't have anything yet, but you see there is like something on the top. It's not one anymore, right? So let's go back and get this a bit more exciting. So what I can do here really quick is under my, yeah, I can just put like a watch effect that will look at this data. So console log assets. and then assets.value, because that's a ref. So let's see if we get something. Oh, we get an array of things, and that's 9 arrays, so that's great. And it's my furniture here. It says flat TV. I'm seeing this TV quite some time today. So that's great. We got the first one. Let's do the next one. And it's probably inside the asset folder. Daniel had mocked this one. So I'm just going to break the app and then move it to creating the asset endpoint. And then it's just going to be called asset.ts. I'm going to paste it again and go together with Vue because it's the same stuff, right? We're using Supabase and we have the types and blah, blah, blah. So we are like instantiating the database, getting some parameters from Daniel. In this case, the parameter is the object ID that we're going to be using to fetch this information. And then we're going to be selecting like just one single item that has the same ID. So that's great. We can just go back to our component, or actually page. Where is it? In here. So we can say same stuff, equal. We're going to be fetching some things, and it's fetching actually from, and you see like Nux is really helpful because already like read the endpoint. So this is asset. And then I just need to copy something here because I don't remember. So on my pages and then on asset index.view, yeah, what we want to do is put here a query that says ID. And then ID will come from also from Nuxt. We can say that const ID equals use route dot params dot ID. So this will just like take this ID from the root. Like, so when I click here, I want to get this to fetch from the database. So Daniel is using some data here, and he's calling that as asset. That's the thing that I comment. He had like this pending ref, which we're going to be using from the one here, and that should be it. I think maybe he needs some refresh.
And
that's
also wrap the ID inside an object.
All right. Oh yeah, that's great. And yeah, it's already wrapped, I think. Yeah, it should be. It's just the formatting. So let's go back to the app. Ooh, where am I? I'm getting a bit dizzy, guys. Bear with me. Yeah, so here's like our furniture with the parameters. It's category furniture version and so on. So I think now Daniel's ready to take it back and then continue on putting some nice images here. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, hello again. I'm on this backend branch, so I have all the stuff from Victor here. So we can run the server again. Okay, it's initializing. Okay, perfect. So we can see all the assets coming from the backend. What's going on? Okay, that's fine. Great. So what we want to do now is go to our root, which is holding the grid. And now we want to go and pass some data to this asset card. So we'll display a preview of every asset. So let's start with a project ID that comes from asset project ID. And the second thing will be Speckle ID. Asset. Oh, I misspelled it here. It's asset. Then we have this type safety, so we can just select Speckle ID. And you can see the TV. We've seen it many times today, as Victor mentioned. And those things are not visible just yet because Speckle preview service will generate it in probably a couple of minutes. So hopefully at the end of the tutorial, we'll see the previews already. All right, so we have the previews, and the next step will be actually to initialize the viewer. So let's go with the TV. So the viewer should be here. So the first thing that we have to do is actually to install the npm package with the viewer. So it will be npm I Speckle Viewer. Thank you, Copilot. Great. That's perfect. Let's run the server once again. And now we're gonna go to our asset page. And here I can actually remove this mock data. I can remove this console log, and we have to write some Vue.js code here. So on mounted, so once the whole DOM structure of this component is built, we want to initialize the viewer just to make sure that this container exists. So what we want to do is to check if the container exists. It's a ref, so we need a value from here. And just going back here, the viewer is here, and we have this ref and a container value assigned to it, which means basically that once the component is initialized, this container div will be available for us from inside this ref. So that's why we want that, because we want to inject our viewer inside of it. So now we can create our viewer. We want to have this viewer available outside of the component. Okay, thank you. And it doesn't want to import, so I need to do it manually from Speckle add Speckle Viewer. It's not helping me for some reason. I think it's called just viewer. Yes, correct. So we want to import viewer from this npm package, and we want to import default viewer params as well. So the viewer type is actually a viewer, or it's a null, and we're gonna initialize it as null. Thank you, Copilot. So now we can say that the viewer, we already have it here, the viewer is equal to new viewer. So now we can initialize it. And what we have to put inside of it is our container. So container value. So this is the container, which is this div that we are referring on the HTML. And we want to inject this default viewer params in here as well. And now we need to initialize this viewer. So we have to call it viewer dot init. And this is asynchronous function. So we want to await this. And to await this, we have to make this this callback async as well. So hopefully now it's initialized. Save it. Great. And now what we want to do is we want to load our TV inside it. So viewer.load object. Here I'm just gonna copy paste, but what we are pasting here is basically a string that is saying that from this stream, and we are taking this value from our asset, we want to take this object. Again, we have the value from this asset. And so we are just passing IDs, and this object will be loaded to our viewer. So now if I will refresh, we see a TV here that is interactive. We can move it around. So that's perfect. So if we go back to gallery, you can see that the preview already generated some nice little thumbnails for us. So we can check out the chair. The chair is loading here. Yes, so we have the viewer working. We have the preview working. So the next step is actually adding a pagination. So we want to see more furnitures. Right, so let's go back to the index.view, and here on asset pagination. So now actually to do that, we have to create a state that will be shareable across different components in our application. So to do so, we need to create a new file. We will call it, first of all, it has to be in the composables folder. It's again a magic folder that Next will automatically import. And composables is basically the logic that you can reuse. So if you have the same logic that you use in multiple components in your Vue or Next application, you want to probably create a composable out of it. We're gonna create a state TypeScript file in here. And the state that we want to share is a page, a number of a current page. So we will call it, we'll make an expression use page that will use this use, it's called use state, composable that comes from Next. And then we can also say, just to make sure that it's type safe, that it's a number. And unique alias, so we can use this to recognize which state we are talking about, and then a default value, and default value in that case will be 0. Yes, great. So we have the state, and we can refer to it by just calling this usePage function in our components. So now if I will go back to index.view, so our root path, we can reuse this mock data. So we want to bring this state that we just created, and now here we should see our page, and now we have to attach it to the pagination component that we created before. So we have this asset pagination component. So if I go inside of it, we can do the same. So now we have a page that is a ref of 0, but we want to make it dynamic with this shareable state that we created. So I'm gonna again call this function that we just created usePage. Yes, and yes, so this initialized with a value of 0. Let me just check if I have everything here. Yes, that's great. So now if we go to index, and let's display this value here. Let me refresh it. States.ts. Now we don't want to import that. Let me use change.
I think it's just a little typo, Daniel, on composable. Yeah, I think it should be composables, the folder.
Right.
That's the thing with magic folders. They require magic names.
Exactly. Thank you, Victor.
Yep, sounds good.
Yes, perfect. So we don't have an error anymore. Oh, still something is wrong. Let me double check if this is correct. Yes, that seems right. Going back to index, we are using this.
Yeah, and then now I just saw like some import somewhere in one of the components. There was like an import to this thing.
Yeah, on this one.
Yeah,
yes,
this one.
Right.
That's
so the auto import was probably perfect.
There
Thank you.
Go.
Okay, so now hopefully, yes, when I'm clicking, you can see this value is changing. So yeah, but pagination seems to work. And now we have to attach it to the query that is fetching assets from the backend. So we are again back on this index.view, and we should add the query here, and the query will take a page. So page.value. Right. So now
I think it actually like just the ref is fine. Yeah. Yeah. So if you just send the page ref without the value, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that.
Yeah. Great. So now you can see that pagination is working correctly. Let's remove that. All right, so we have a preview, we have the viewer, we have the pagination working, and we have some time left. So actually I can add some extra animations here. So I've been playing a little bit with this new API that is not available on all the browsers at the moment, but on some of them. I think it's only on Chromium-based browsers, so it will be Chrome, Edge, Brave probably. So the API is called Vue Transition, and to activate it inside Next applications, we have to create this object experimental, and here the Vue Transition will be set to true. And now we can play with this a little bit. So we will create some extra classes here on our index. Let's make this style scoped. So scoped, which means basically that this style will be attached only to components that are available here in this particular component. So we want to make active class, that will leverage this Vue transition API. We're gonna call it graphic. So we want to transition this preview into our viewer after navigating. So I'm gonna use a contain layout as well, which means basically that they won't remove, like during a transition, the div won't be removed, but it will be animated. So this is great. And then before I actually added this state that is basically allowing us to attach this active class after clicking on a particular preview. So you can see that we have a Nuxt link. Once we click on it, active value will be an ID of a particular asset. And then if this asset is active, then the class will be attached to it. So we have it done on this side, and now we have to do the same inside the component that we are, the route that we are navigating to. So inside this ID, and here, let's make it scoped as well. And we're gonna do the same. So we have active class. And we just have to mention the same name, and hopefully now after clicking, let me just refresh. We'll have a, yeah, we have a transition that is a bit laggy, but it's because the viewer is starting to load before the animation is finished. So to fix it quickly, we can set a timeout on this one. So we basically will initialize the viewer a little bit later. So let's put the whole logic inside this timeout, and let's put it on 300 milliseconds. So the viewer will be initialized 300 milliseconds after the component is mounted. Yes, so we can see that the animation is a bit smoother now. Yeah, that's it. And we can do the same actually with the header. So I'm just gonna add it very quickly. That we want to, our H1, which is basically this assets header here. We want to animate it to the header that we have inside assets root. So yes, here we go. So we basically do the same. So we have to just call the transition with a particular name. and it figures out the rest. So you can see that those headers are animating also from one to another. Yeah, kind of cool. It gives you this Android or iOS vibe in the web. So really waiting until this API will be implemented across all the browsers. All right, I think that's it. We are open for questions now. Thank you.
Great. Oof. Nice, Daniel. Super cool.
Nice, Victor.
Senda,
Good job.
I guess that's with you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Some of the people watching did not believe that this was a live coding, so I just want to say again that yes, this was all live. And congrats on making it through. You do have a few questions, so I'll just bring them on stage. And if anyone watching has more questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Let's start with this one.
How is the backend authorized to the Speckle server? And is there a specific reason to let the backend do the Speckle communication and not the front end? So right now, we are not using any sorts of authorization. You've seen that everything was public. We didn't generate any tokens from Speckle. That's because we needed to do this demo live. And then, of course, you want to do as much of security and authentication on the backend. We also built this app in a way that it relies on Speckle for receiving data, but it doesn't rely on Speckle for providing data, only for the viewer part, right? So in any case, we need to do maintenance on Speckle or turn off some things. We can still have access to this data. So that's why we put a lot of things on the back end. Yeah. What are the advantages of using Nux instead of Vue in real-world projects? I would say it's maybe you can take this one, Daniel.
Yeah, so I think there is a couple of benefits. I mean, it really depends on what you are building, but in our case, the biggest benefit is that we can have backend and frontend in one application. So Victor can call directly the database. He was able to prepare all that on the backend, and then only necessary data is sent to a frontend. So that's one of the things. Second thing, I think it's also that you have type safety across the whole application, so we can reuse the same types on the backend and on the front end. And yeah, also if you want to create a full stack app without using Next or Next for React, then you would have to build a dedicated backend and front end as a second app, and then the communication requires also some type generation and other overhead. So I think for small teams is great, for bigger teams probably as well. For us, it's also the convenience of using the same tool for the whole project. And also there is some advantages of actually server-side rendering. So you are preparing the whole preview of the page on a server, and it's, for example, great for the positioning your website for search engines and things like that, which is maybe less related to AEC, but can be important sometimes.
There are some lags within the huge number of objects, such as large buildings in the 3D viewer. Do you have a plan to optimize it? So that's the thing, with the Speckle Viewer, you could either pass a whole a stream and that will load everything for you, or you can load like individual pieces of it. So it's actually up to you to design your application so that you are loading as less data as possible. I'm very skeptical of this 3D viewers where you need to see all of the data. You never need to see like all of the data. You're always like looking for something. So I would say it's about like having a clear intention. What does your page needs to do? In our case, it's just one furniture at a time. So we have no lags. So it's kind of like a design practice, I would say. The answer for that.
All right. Thank you so much again, guys. I don't think there's any more questions in the chat, which means that you're free to go unless people want more live coding. But yeah, we'll have a short break until our next presentation. And thanks again. This was great.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye
Thank
bye,
you very
Senda.
much.
See you. Bye.